You're listening to the Investability Podcast with Dennis Cisterna. We're teaching you the basics to invest in real estate like an insider. Learn how to capitalize on the opportunities in this lucrative marketplace with tips, strategies, and expert advice. And now your host, Dennis Cisterna.
Welcome back to another episode of the Investability Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Cisterna. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to get local in today's podcast, and not local where I live in Denver. We're going to get local in a place we really haven't focused on any of the podcasts yet, and that's Detroit. And to cover this topic, I have a very special guest today, Al Bien. He's the founder and CEO of Pioneer Homes. They are a turnkey real estate investment firm that is based out of Detroit. Al, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Dennis. It's a pleasure.
So Detroit is an exciting place, and before we get into what's going on in that market, what makes it such an attractive opportunity for investors, I'd love to get some background on your firm. What made you decide to get into the space? Tell us a little bit about your company, where it's been, and where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I graduated college in 09, May of 09, and I actually bought my first flip house, I guess you call them. The retail flip, you fix up real nice, place on the MLS, and keep your fingers crossed that somebody wants to buy it. Did that December of 09, bought our first property, and because of our location, we were a local Metro Detroit company, this turnkey, I guess, business model kind of developed. We had people calling us saying, hey, we want to buy rental properties, and we just were, I guess, I always say I'm lucky that we were in that position when we were. So kind of started with a couple clients. I think our initial client bought like 50 properties that very first year, and it just really snowballed from there. After a while, we kind of got well known as the Detroit guys to go to. We had a management company. We did a lot of renovations. So it just kind of happened. I say we got lucky. I mean, if I would have started this business 2 years prior, who knows where I'd be today? It was just crazy, the timing. So, and over time, it's developed. The first couple of years was definitely a learning curve. Detroit's definitely an interesting animal. We kind of call it the wild, wild west, because if you're not in the right parts, it's kind of, it's tricky. So we've learned where and where not to be. And then once we got past that learning curve is really when things started to take off for us. But I'd say since, 2011 is when we really started to grow. But because we were here, we were local, I feel like that's why we got a lot of attention. But we do a lot of business domestically, internationally, and it's just kind of something that fell in our lap, and we took it with the great opportunity it was, and kind of turned into what we are today.
So when people talk about the not the right area in Detroit, I think a lot of people, their general impression is, oh, you mean the areas where there's packs of wild dogs roaming, attacking citizens?
Yeah.
I'm guessing those are probably a little bit overblown in terms of the volume of those kinds of incidents. I'm guessing this is just between making a good investment and a bad investment and having that infrastructure in the neighborhood, right?
Absolutely. The number one rule in real estate, it's all about location, right? So, Detroit, they don't talk about, like in the media, they don't talk about all the good things. They talk about only the bad. They talk about, people getting shot or crime and all that stuff. And I could argue that happens in most metropolitan cities. It's just part of nature. We got Chicago, you got parts of California, like LA. All these major metro areas have that. So you just have to know where to avoid it. And it's really interesting about Detroit because it's literally like you cross a street and it's like a whole different world. That's just how Detroit is. So, we've kind of identified those areas of where to avoid. There's a lot of really nice areas. 99% of the people that come here to look at properties, they couldn't believe that there's this nice of stuff in Detroit. It's just, the media bashes it so hard that people just automatically think it's awful. So when they come here and they see it, they're very, pleasantly surprised with what we have to show them. And it's pretty cool to see that.
What are some of the big indicators or trends going on in Detroit right now that are helping with that resurgence? I guess one of the great things are, once you kind of hit the bottom, you have nowhere to go but up, right?
Yeah. So, I guess to throw some stats out there, Michigan as a whole, I think they added like 100,000 new jobs in 2016 alone. So that alone is incredible. And I know everybody's heard about Dan Gilbert, Quicken Loans, the owner of Quicken Loans owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's bought 80 properties downtown, spent $19 billion in total. And really the thing that he's done to Detroit is just given it a different limelight. It was always negative. Now that these positive things are happening, it's starting to attract other businesses. GM's obviously down to the Renaissance Center, but Ally Financial moved down there. Little Caesars has been down there for a while. Chrysler, HP, Ernst & Young, Comerica, OnStar, Blue Cross. These are all companies that have kind of found their way to Detroit. I mean, to me, 5-6 years ago, you go down to Detroit downtown on a Monday, Tuesday afternoon. No Detroit Tigers, no hockey, no football game. It's kind of a dead city. So over the last 5 years, you go down there today. I mean, because I go down there all the time. I have clients in town. We have a satellite office downtown, so I'm there frequently. And middle of the day, man, it's rocking. It's a different place. So between what Gilbert's doing, the Ilitch family, there's so much business coming down. Facebook just announced that they're going to be doing some type of I don't know if it's going to be like an actual formal school or education, but they're going to be training like 2,000 students in Detroit to get into the tech industry. So, I mean, you just look at all these things. To me, they're just huge indicators of what's to come, and they're saying things like, we want Detroit to be the next Chicago or the next New York. Obviously, it's going to be a smaller scale, but the reason it's so attractive right now is the cost of doing business is significantly less than it is to do in New York and Chicago. So that's why we're getting so much attention. And I mean, the growth downtown has just been crazy. And obviously, it's had a ripple effect on the outskirts of downtown itself.
And is there still a significant amount of areas where the land banks and the municipality, they're basically razing certain neighborhoods or just knocking everything down because of the blight in those neighborhoods, or is that kind of slowed down a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think really the turning point was when Duggan came into office. He really started doing, I think everybody before him, they did a lot of talking, not a lot of doing. And I feel like he's kind of a doer. So, I think his first year in office, I mean, and to me, these are big things, like I think within the first year, they got 20,000 non-operational streetlights working. That's just one thing that to me has a huge effect on the city itself. You go down, it's dark and gloomy, nobody wants to be there, but you can turn the lights on, it's a different place. And I think to date that they have demoed close to 10,000 homes. So before that, I mean, the numbers were minimal. But yeah, there are certain parts of the city where they're targeting. Like there's a really nice area called East English Village. That's a really awesome area in Detroit. And yeah, they kind of go in bundles. And what they do is they require the person who buys it, I think the first 6 months they require it to be an actual resident, or not resident, it'd be a homeowner. So they have to buy it to live in it, and they give you 180 days to renovate it, get it, city certified. And if you don't, I don't know the exact repercussions, but I hear they take it back from you if you don't follow the rules. So they are targeting certain areas. I know Quicken Loans, they targeted an area called Bagley. They went and bought, I think, 15 or 20 properties, renovated, and they were trying to help the values over there because some of the values in Detroit are lower, so it's hard to get traditional financing. So they kind of bought, renovated, and sold on mortgages these nicer properties at a different price. So yeah, that's been going on for a few years now, and I think as a whole, it's really changed the platform of a lot of the areas in Detroit.
What could the average investor expect out of a property in Detroit if they were going to buy a turnkey asset from you or some other group that's out there right now? And as an example, if you're going to go into Indianapolis right now, and Indianapolis is a nice kind of steady, stable market, you'd probably pay around $100K for a property. You'd probably have monthly rent somewhere between $1,000 and $1,100 or $1,200, so you'd have a gross yield between 12 and 14, and probably a cap rate around 6 to 7.5%. How does Detroit stack up compared to that, or where does it sit in terms of its rents versus cost and its returns?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. It's kind of the reason that led us to this podcast today was because of your article about Detroit Metro being like the number one grossing city in the country. So we tend to sell at between 15 and 18% net ROI and 99% of our buyers are cash buyers. So I'd say the average price point is going to be around $40K. We get into the 55 and 60K space, not a ton of it. And the problem is a lot of people come to Detroit because they want to buy the cheaper properties. And we try to avoid that arena. We try to convince people that, hey, look, this is a long-term thing. You don't want to be going after the cheapest thing with the highest ROI because, in my opinion, it doesn't happen the way that it looks like on paper. So we try to shift people into buying the higher-end asset. And I say higher-end because it's not the 25 or 30K asset. We try to shift them into 40 to 50K. And those are typically going to be between 15 and 18%. Obviously taxes and really the taxes are the biggest, variable because the taxes are all over the place in Detroit. I think they're, as a whole, I'd say higher than the national average for that price point asset. So because of that, I think that the yields would be even a little bit higher. But because of the tax rate being a little bit higher than the average, I'd say 15 to 18% is kind of where we sell at, and it also depends on these people's appetite. A lot of guys, they want to make sure they have X per rent. I'd say the average rental rate in that price point is going to be between $750 and $900, 900 being in the higher price point assets. But I'd say those are average numbers.
Got it. And so, of course, the next question that comes to mind for all of these investors, I think it's awesome that you guys are serving people not only across the country, but even internationally. All the small investors I talk to, they're always nervous about, who's going to take care of this property once I buy it? How do I know that rent's getting paid on time? Can you talk a little bit about, how you help hold investors' hands when they enter that market?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you kind of hit it right on the head. Who's going to help me after I buy this house? And I've seen a lot of companies that sell properties, and that's what they do. They sell properties. They don't do anything else. They say, thanks for your business. Have a nice day. Because we've been around for so long, to me, it's really important to assist from, not only the acquisition, but also the post-sale and the management. So a lot of times when we're doing the contract part of the deal, signing the purchase agreement, we're also kind of walking them through the management process, getting them set up with their management company. We work with a couple really well-renowned companies in Detroit. There's a lot of good companies. There's also a lot of bad companies. We've kind of found out who and who not to work with. So we kind of walk them through that aspect of it from day one. And by the time they close, they already know who their property manager is. They kind of know how they're going to collect rent. They see the system notifications of when rent's collected, any maintenance notifications. So, for me, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle is the management side. I don't care if you have the nicest house in the nicest area. If you don't have good management, it doesn't matter. So for me, that's the biggest key to success in not just Detroit, I'd say in any market. So we really hit home on management. So, day of closing, they know what's going on. They know who to talk to if they have any questions. And then also after the fact, if they have any questions about the property itself or anything else in regards to the managers or anything, think of a question, we're here for that as well. So, we had a lot of clients come back. Hey, 6 months go by. There's been times where a furnace has gone out after 6 months. We go back and we'll replace it for these people. I mean, we've been here for a long time for a reason. We actually had a guy, last week, bought a house from us like a year ago. And it was just a freak accident. We still don't know how it happened. They're going through insurance, but there was some drywall that just kind of fell. These houses were built in the 40s and 50s. So it was the original sheetrock. And I personally think the kids were just horsing around. But some of the sheetrock fell down. Al, what happened? I said, I don't know. So we sent the guy out to fix it, and that was that. We sold the house a year ago. So that's just who we are. That's what we do. And for me, that's the reason we're still here. We've seen a lot of turnkey guys in Detroit kind of come and go. We're still here. We're still grinding and helping these people because, look, at the end of the day, a lot of these people's money, it's retirement. It's not like, we're selling to guys that have $5 million and it's not a big deal to them. I really want to make sure these people are successful. And for me, I think that's why we've had the success we've had.
Well, customer service is super important to any great company, so it's good to hear that.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really interesting to hear about Detroit. I mean, it's investors always tell me, where should I be investing? Where should I be investing? I think, a place like Detroit just got hit so hard that people don't necessarily give it its due and overlook that. And if you're a long-term investor and you believe in larger metro areas across this country, if you've got a polished company like yours, kind of doing all the heavy lifting and finding the opportunities and taking care of you, why not? It seems like its doors should be open a little wider than they are right now to the average investor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I always talk about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And look, while I don't have a crystal ball that's telling me what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years, as an investor, you can only look at indicators, okay? And to me, when 100,000 new jobs are added to this market, not Detroit in particular, but as a whole, the state of Michigan, there's so many stats about Detroit that you just can't look away from. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you got a guy that spent $19 billion, that's billion with a B, in the last 5 or 6 years. So, look, I like to say I'm a smart guy, but there's people that are a lot smarter and wealthier than me, and I tend to follow their leadership. So you got guys like that making those kind of moves. You can't not look at that. You can't not get interested in what's going on. And man, there has been some serious appreciation, not only Detroit, or not downtown, but around Detroit. Well, we don't sell on appreciation. We always sell on cash flow because, I was listening to your podcast about the hope of appreciation. So we don't really sell it. We sell cash flow. Hey, if it appreciates, that's awesome. That's a bonus, but we can't promise that. That's like trying to predict the future. You just can't do that. So, but yeah, I think with everything going on, you got to look at these indicators. And to me, those are indicators that are really pointing to an upward trend.
Another question for you, because there's obviously a lot of different ways to kind of sell properties, especially when they're structured as income properties. Do you guys do any kind of market analysis on that property in terms of its retail value when you're selling that to an investor, or is it really more kind of cap rate or ROI focused?
Yeah, because most of our sales are cash, we don't get too hung up on that. I mean, we know the areas pretty well. We only focus on maybe, there's probably 6 or 7 zip codes that we focus on. So, I hate to say what we just know, but we don't get too wrapped up in comps, like, because we don't do a ton of appraisals or sell to, anybody using financing, at least in Detroit. We just kind of go on what we know about those zip codes. And yeah, I'd say not really in regards to that particular question. It's just something we never really had to do.
Yeah, I understand. It's it certainly, if someone's buying it at a price that makes sense and giving them the return they want, then maybe that is the new market value. And I think that's something we're starting to experience in certain markets right now, where yes, comparable sales for retail homes are at one price, but investment sales are at another because the cash flow is good enough for that market. And then now you have two types of valuation styles coming to a head, and part of the issue with that is which one is going to have the stronger influence. I'm guessing that in Detroit you're going to have a lot more investor sales continue to kind of drive pricing in that market than necessarily retail sales at the $50,000 mark, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There's, I think the largest owner of property in Detroit, I think they own like 1,100 properties. I mean, it's been definitely the way of the market, definitely for the last, I always go back to 2009 because that's when it really, really tanked. But yeah, I think, and it also goes back to certain areas. I mean, there's definitely more homeowner areas than maybe some people would think, but there are definitely areas where it's, significantly higher home ownership compared to rental properties. There's areas like, I always refer to Rosedale Park. It's a really prestigious area. I'd say there's probably 80 to 85% homeowners in that particular subdivision. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, I think there's definitely a lot of investment properties in Detroit. And yeah, I mean, I'd argue the investors are keeping the price points kind of a little bit lower than if we were to do more retail. We're kind of thinking about maybe starting to do more retail flips in the city because it may, it might have a little impact on the actual retail values. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point about the homeowners versus the investors for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your firm before we wrap up here. So you guys have already done, 1,000 plus properties in the metro area. That's a huge number by anybody's gauge. So where do you go from here? Is it just continuing to expand the number of buyers that can work through your program? Are you starting to maybe see any kind of problems with continuing to obtain inventory at a price that makes sense?
Not really. It's a huge city. I mean, it's 140 square miles. There's also a lot of cities that surround Detroit that are also viable investment properties. But, personally, we're getting into multifamily. I think the multifamily space is, I think naturally that's kind of what investors do. They get into single family and go, okay, well, this is fun. It's been fun for 8 years. I want to get into a bigger animal. I like to say I don't want to be a one-trick pony. So yeah, while the single family game has been great, it is great. We have no, I always say we got another 2-year window. We have a 2-year window. We've been saying that now for 6 years, and things just continue to get better in Detroit. So I don't even know. I mean, it's a very lucrative business for us. If the demand is there, we're going to continue selling. The inventory, when you have strategies that we do to acquire properties, it's not that difficult. But yeah, I mean, inventory definitely gets spotty from time to time, but it's just, we just got to keep our nose to the grind. So when things are great, we press even harder. And I think that's why we're pretty good at keeping up with the inventory. But yeah, I think our next play is going to be definitely get into some more multifamily downtown. Reading articles about Detroit needing 15,000 apartments by 2030 is, that's pretty appealing. You want to get into that market. So I think between those two things, those are going to be the next steps for us.
Yeah, it's amazing to think of how much housing overages were happening just a few years ago, and now there's not going to be enough houses.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Although it helps if you knock 20,000 of them down, too.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure. But hey, they had to. They didn't have a choice. I mean, they're beyond repair,
Well, before we wrap up, one other thing I just always like to get from all my guests is a little bit of insight for that first-time investor out there. And I know you started this right out of college, which is very impressive, very entrepreneurial of you.
Thank you.
But I know you've made mistakes along the way, Al.
Yeah.
So this is where I always like to hear a small horror story about what you could have done different and what the average investor can learn from your mistakes.
It's a horror story. I mean, honestly, for me, it always comes down to the landlord that does not want to do maintenance. I always urge these guys, look, don't be the landlord that comes and buys a house and something happens, you don't pay for it. We try to take care of the mechanicals. For me, it's always the furnace, water heater, plumbing, electrical. Make sure the windows are functional. We sell a lot of properties with new roofs, but to single out a horror story, man, that's a tough question. Here's one. This probably was within the first 2 years of our business. We had a guy, he came in, I forget what country he was from, but he came in from out of state or out of the country. He owned 14 properties. He needed a new manager. So he sits down with us, looks me in the face, he goes, Al, all my houses are renovated. I said, okay, great. You have 14 homes. You say that 6 are rented. That means you have 8 that are freshly renovated that are ready to go to the market. He says, yes. He said, I already paid my contractors. They sent me pictures. Everything's complete. I said, okay, great. So we do our intake. We give the properties to our leasing division to go get photos, assess them, whatever we have to do to intake a property. Lo and behold, his 8 properties that are supposed to be renovated are not renovated. And about $70,000 later, he was finally actually renovated and ready for market. I think that was probably the biggest horror story that we saw, was just people that don't come here. They don't find any reputable people to work with, and they trust them, and they send them money without verifying work. So I think that was like the worst horror story. But in regards to, I guess tips, I always focus on the major mechanicals. Make sure your house is functional. Don't put a Band-Aid on it. If you need to do it, just do it. If the furnace is older, yeah, you can have it serviced, but is that going to last forever? Probably not. Just replace it. I mean, it all comes down to functionality. You want your tenants to think that you care about the property. And I always say, look, we're not managing properties, we're managing people. People tend to forget that there are human beings living inside their properties, So for me, if they take that all into consideration, I mean, those few things right there alone, I think you'll be significantly more successful than your average Joe. I just think some guys, they want to do everything as cheap as possible. And the old saying, you try to save $1, it always ends up costing you $2. And in this case, I think it costs you more than $2. I mean, it can lead to vacancy, which is a whole lot more expensive than $2. So those are, I guess, my insights into this market for sure.
Great advice for sure. One last thing. So I'm sure some investors' interest might be piqued now about Detroit and how to potentially work with you. What's the best way for these guys to learn more about Pioneer Homes or to contact someone on your team?
Yeah, so I would say shoot us an email. The email would be sales@pioneerhomesus.com. That's pioneerhomesus.com. Somebody will probably get back with you same day, if not within 15 minutes. You can check out our website. We try to keep our inventory on the site updated, but things they sell quickly right now, and by the time they get to the site, they're sold. So, if you're looking into buying property, definitely get in with one of our sales team members, and they'll get you into some inventory.
Great. Hey, Al, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to talk about investing in Detroit in particular with me. I'm sure it's a fascinating subject for all of our listeners, and I certainly appreciate your insight.
Yeah, Dennis, I really appreciate having me, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Al.
Take care.
Okay, that's all we have for today, guys. Hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram for comments on the show. Our handle, as always, is @InvestPodcast. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you click that 5-star rating and leave us a review. Thanks one more time to Al Behan, the founder and CEO of Pioneer Homes. Until next week, I'm Dennis Cisterna, and this is the Investability Podcast.
Check back every Tuesday for more groundbreaking content. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to be one of the first to know about our latest news, exclusive listings, and fresh daily content. Make sure to visit us on Hubzu.com, one of the nation's leading platforms for auction properties. Thanks again for listening. And now a quick disclaimer about our show. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Hubzu or any other Altisource entity. The foregoing content is provided as is and is not intended to constitute, and in fact does not constitute, financial, investment, tax, or legal advice by the host, Altisource, or any of their affiliates. All investment decisions carry inherent risk, and no Altisource entity shall have any liability